But thanks everyone for coming. It's great to see all you guys here. Definitely exciting when you have a lot of people interested and a lot of people that are caring about this type of thing. If you hopefully are close to the heart of God, then you understand why this is an important thing, an exciting thing as well. When you have these young people that are excited and they're really using a lot of their time and energy and putting it towards things that are eternal. And I think that's a great thing. And I think we value that, and I think that's probably why you're here. So hopefully that comes through tonight. Hopefully you get to see some really awesome work that's been done in the countries that are represented up here, even the soccer and baseball countries. So we'll get to that. Maybe we'll explain that a little bit more in a second. But yeah, we actually had a couple girls to come in and decorate, so we're definitely thankful for that. So looking forward to our time. First up, we get to hear from 5 people tonight. Hannah Lokos, who went to Togo. I'll invite up Hannah to come on down and start us off and tell us a little bit about her trip to.
Hi everyone. I have a really quiet voice, so I'm gonna try to talk really loud. But if you guys in the back can't hear me, can you give me talk louder? Thanks. Okay, so I'm currently in the way. Currently a rising junior at the Master's College. I'm studying pre-med, so I'm a biology major. This team of people are from my school. We left at the end of May and we got back a couple weeks ago. We were in Togo, West Africa for 6 weeks. So it's me and Brittany and Robert and Matt and Brianna May and Natalie. And that was my team. All of us are somehow related to the medical field. And yeah, that's our team. Okay, so Togo, honestly, I had no idea where it was until I was about a senior in high school. It's in the armpit of Africa, I guess you could say. It's just this teeny little strip right there. You almost need a magnifying glass, but there it is. And so we were working at 2 locations. First, we were working at the North in Mongo, which is almost way up near Burkina Faso at the north. And then we were also working at Chico, which is near Polymay, the Coplime one at the bottom, that little yellow triangle. And so we flew in and we left, So we flew in and we left the Charles de Gaulle airport in France, where there's Dior's and Giorgio Armani's. And then we flew into Togo and there's one beer shop in the airport. And it was definitely, most of the culture shock came within the first 5 minutes. But this was our bus, so we got on a bus and we headed north on a 10-hour ride to the north. And this is, I think the next slide is the hospital. No, okay, sorry. This is a goat eating coconut shells. I've just never seen anything like it, but there it is. There it is. It's about as tall as I am, the coconut shells, not the goat. Okay, so the main religion there is Islam. It's not hostile though. I never felt threatened, none of us did. But it's Islam mixed with a lot of animism, which is spirit worship, demon worship. There's actually a lot of demon sacrifice that goes on in the outer villages. Just a lot of superstition. Before they come to the hospital, they go see Marabu, which are witch doctors, to get charms or spells. So it's not really a religion that's just one thing. It's kind of a conglomeration of a lot of things, but it's very much a religion ruled by fear and uncertainty. And so that plays a big part of our work in the hospital, is dealing with people from that background. This is water on the way north. The south is really green, but the north is really, really, really hot. It was 127 degrees our first day. I had never seen heat like that. And so we were working, okay, I'll tell you about the project in a minute. Okay, we bought cheese from them. This is an example of a normal store. This is right outside the hospital that we were working at in the north. This is the hospital water tower. The water there, the water from the previous slide, is not safe to drink. It's ridden with parasites. And so a lot of the cases we saw in the hospital, not only do they have malaria and a wide variety of other things, but they all have parasites too. So this is the hospital set up their own water tower to try to keep the people safe through that. This is the hospital. Okay, so we were told when we first signed up for this trip that we were going to be working in a hospital in Togo, Africa. We got there, and the hospital isn't built yet. And we were like, oh, Okay, so there's some adjustments that need to be taking place here, but it was good. What we got to do in the north was we were able to help them set up their pharmacy. So we got to work on cataloging drugs and like setting it all up and getting it ready to go. This hospital in the north is going to be a huge blessing because it's like right between 4 major countries at the very north. So there's going to be people coming from everywhere to come to this hospital. And there aren't really many hospitals in the north. The north is very superstitious, and so it's a lot of witch doctors and just tribal medicine. So this is going to be a huge door for the gospel. And it opens on January 8th. So you can keep that in your prayers because there's just a lot of scrambling that's going on right now to raise support and get nurses to sign on. And so all of that's taking place now. This is one of the cars at the hospital. It says Hospital de Esperance, which means the Hospital of Hope. Okay, so just I know a lot of you were praying for the people we were serving over there. So here's a couple faces just to know who you were praying for. This is Lee and Violet. We left calling them aunt and uncle, and I miss them so much. They are just a huge blessing, and it was really cool to see that faithfulness doesn't always mean a huge smile. Like, it doesn't mean hunky-dory, everything's okay and we're having a great time, but these two people have been through so much and they get discouraged, but they keep marching forward, and God is just so glorified through them and their faithfulness. So it was really, really cool to get to know them, and I miss them a lot. This is Lee. He would play with Zach. Zach is one of the missionary kids. They play Axis and Allies every Saturday. Not that different than here. This is Melissa. She was our main host. She coordinated everything. We went to a Muslim wedding together. If you want to know what a Muslim wedding is like, you can ask me later because it's much different than our weddings here. This is Anna. Anna is one of the most incredible people that I think I've ever met. She's not even 30 yet. She lives by herself in this little village in the middle of Africa, and she is just such a huge servant and just really, really humble too. And the little girl sitting with us is an orphan that's been taken in by this lady called Mama Misma, and she's a new believer in Togo. And it's really cool getting to see what God's doing in the village in Togo, just like getting to meet the new believers, because it's a Muslim society. The man decides the religion of the family. And so oftentimes many of the converts we met were widows or orphans, people who didn't have a male figure in their life telling them what they had to do, and they're outcasts and they don't have anybody else, and they know they need a savior. And so this little girl and many of the widows we met are some of the first converts to Christianity in that area. Okay, Anna has this on her door, so that every time she walks out into the 127, 130 degrees heat, she remembers this, which I thought was amazing. This is Anna. This is the family Anna lives with in town. This is Timothée. He is a French agriculturalist, also using agriculture for the gospel. This is Abraham. This was the pharmacy before we got it all set up. And so Abraham is a local Togolese man, and he's being trained by the hospital, and he's also one of the first Christians there. And he and his wife are both saved, and they are just the sweetest couple, and they reach out to their own people too. So it's cool seeing the Togolese people being their own ambassadors for Christ to their own people. So that was really cool too. On the weekends, we were able to participate in a children's ministry. So we got to color pictures with the children of the village and play games with them, and that was how I met Lusa. He's one of the village children. He followed me everywhere. He is my buddy. We got to host a VBS program in the afternoons when we were off work from the hospital when it gets so hot. And we had to generate, we didn't really know we were doing this until we got there. They're like, you're generating a VBS program, right? And the leaders had kind of known we were supposed to bring stuff, and they brought some curriculum, but nothing was planned. So the night before, we ended up planning all of it, but it was a huge blast. It was so fun getting to spend time with the Missionary's kids, and it was just really cool to use what we'd learned when we were in VBS too, and that was a huge blessing, just getting to look back. Okay, this is Village Market. We went every Sunday-ish, not all the time, but with the missionaries, we got to teach the locals how to make pizza. And then next slide is, they taught us how to make fufu, which is made out of pounded hard yams. And it's really fun. It doesn't taste so great, but it's really fun. Yeah. Thanks. This is pot We did pot in Africa. It's the white stuff, not the fish. It doesn't taste very good either, but it was really fun. We got to see hippos. Zach took us to see hippos. And okay, so this is probably one of my favorite parts of the trip. This little girl in yellow right here, her name is Umi. And so there's a sewing school. The missionaries there have a sewing school that they have built in addition to the hospital. And a lot of the kids that are orphans or have been abused by their families and have fled for various reasons have had to resort to prostitution to stay alive. And so the missionaries have opened a sewing school to teach these kids a trade. And in the lunch break, the missionaries come in and share the gospel with them and host Bible studies with them and teach them how to read and teach them how to think and host discipleship groups with them and show them that somebody cares and they're just actively involved in their lives. And it's just crazy because it's a booming mission field. Like, I met so many youths that are coming to know Christ through this sewing school. And so Umi was one of them. Umi was sacrificed to demons when she was a child. In the outer villages where animism is very prevalent, they'll sacrifice chickens over their babies and dedicate them to spirit. So her entire life, she's just gone through some really dark things. And so she came to the sewing school and she put her trust in Jesus Christ, and now she is one of the biggest evangelists I've ever met. She's 17 years old, and I met kids across 2 villages that are now saved because of God's faithfulness in Umi, and it's just really cool. She's a huge encouragement, and she's just totally on fire for God, and God is so magnified in this little 17-year-old girl who's been through so much. But she's really discouraged now. She's moved back. She fled her family when she was young because her father raped her. But her father has recently become a Christian, and so she's back in her village with her parents, and she's facing a lot of things that are really hard for her. So she's going through some really discouraging times right now, so be in prayer for Umi. So then we went to the south, and the south is where there's a working hospital, which is really cool, but it's a lot greener. You walk out the front door and literally get hit by a mango falling out of a tree. This is the pediatric ward. This is Dr. Ebersol in the middle, and this is Dr. Eric Miller. We got to work with them a lot in the hospital. These 2 kids in the back here have malaria. We got to see surgeries. They don't have anesthesia there. They can only do localized anesthetics or spinal taps, and sometimes it doesn't work. So the people are awake when they're going through surgery, and they can smell their own flesh burning when you use the laser cutter on them. But they put up this board. You can kind of see it. It's covered with the drape so that they can't see you cutting on them. But what you can see, there's a picture of it later, but they have the gospel up in the local languages in just little, just dissectable pieces in picture frames along the back. And so that's all they can see when they're under, or not under. It's just that. Okay. This is Todd. Todd is going to be the head honcho of the hospital in the north. He's also one of the primary surgeons in the hospital in the south right now, but he's going to move to the north. You don't need to see the surgery, but it was really cool. He's so smart, and we just learned a lot from him. He is amazingly brilliant, and God is just really magnified in him, but we were asking him about it, and he said, I'm just a guy who's in way over my head. And just a huge blessing. So we got to spend a lot of time with him and his family. This is Ephraim. Ephraim is a local Togolese man who they've trained, and he's also crazy brilliant, and he's just very much, he's definitely a Christian, and he has this huge heart for his people, and it's really cool seeing him serve. Okay, this guy right here is one of the pastors at the churches in Chico in the south, and so he is one of the main pastors of one of the main churches, and the other pastor is a physician's assistant, so he's an OR tech, and it was really cool because I feel like at the master's college, you have like the Bible majors over here, and then you have like the comm majors over there, and then you have the pre-med majors over here, and there's kind of a divide. But here, he works in the hospital 6 days of the week, and on the 7th, he preaches. And so he's caring for his people physically and spiritually. And it's just cool seeing that there's no real divide between the sacred and the secular. Whether you're in the hospital or outside of the hospital, everything's done for the glory of God. And that was really cool to see. This is Fred and Lydia. They are husband and wife, and they do surgeries together, and they're really cool. They have a really cute son named Noah. This is Kofi. He is also a Christian, and he's amazing. He has his own African Christian choir because there's no Christian music to listen to in their language. So he's like, okay, so I'll make my own. And he mixes his own music, and he directs his own choir. So he's kind of like the Miriam of Okay, this is Dr. Bonce. He's a short-termer, just like we were. He was only there for a month. He's friends with some of the doctors there already. And so every summer, he takes a month off of work at his clinic, and he goes there and he takes his friends' calls. Because there's only 5 main doctors on call at this hospital, and they're on call all the time. That means that sometimes they don't sleep for 3 nights out of the week. They're always in the hospital, and it's not like an American hospital. You walk in and the smell just instantly hits you, and it smells like bleach, battling the effects of sin and death, losing. And it's just hot, there's no air conditioning, and it's intense, but these people just keep doing it. And so every summer, Dr. Bonce goes there and he takes their shifts so that they can sleep and that they can rest. This little boy has cerebral palsy, and my first day in the clinic, the day that I got malaria, I was with him. And, next slide. Okay, so while we were working with this little boy here, we had a translator with us because neither of us speak fluent French or any of the tribal languages. So she's talking and she's talking and she's talking, and then she stops us. And she says, "We must pray now." And we say, "Okay, why are we praying?" And she says, "They want to follow our God." And we were like amazed. And so one of the people there, Ephraim, was explaining it to us. He said that when the people come into the hospital, they see that our God isn't just an idol on the roof. He's not just a marabou ring or a magic charm. He actually saves. And the doctors there actually love, and they care about the people. And so they'll come in and they're greeted by our chaplains. Every patient has a physical growth chart, and they have a spiritual growth chart on top. And so every person who walks into the hospital, relative, patient, anybody who walks in, doesn't leave unless they've heard the gospel. And then the gospel is matched by deeds and actions, and they see these doctors love. And it's really cool. And so it honestly really is a really right mission field in this hospital. And so this couple here prayed to receive Christ my first day, and it was really cool. This is the pediatric ward again. Most of the kids have malaria, but that little boy has lymphoma, and he has the biggest smile you've ever seen. All around the hospital, they have parts of the gospel, and they just have some really crucial Bible verses up in their language, which is really cool. And remember how I was talking about how they don't put you out during surgery, like you're awake. So this is all, they put up a board in front of your head, and they cover it with a sterile drape so that you can't see them cut you open. And all you can really see is that, and that's the gospel in their language. And so that's all they can see while they're being operated on. Okay, so this is the ER. That inside the tan box is the ER. Outside the tan box on top, see where it's more reddish? That's not the ER. It's just right there. And it's really small. Like, this hospital is crazy. It's run on a shoestring budget, like $100,000 a year. That's it, just for drugs and everything. Crazy, crazy, crazy. And, okay, so right after I got over malaria and I was back in the hospital, I saw my first C-section. So my first birth. And then 5 minutes later, they brought in this little girl who had cerebral malaria, and she died on the table after about 10 minutes of trying to resuscitate her. And so it was crazy. Within a span of 15 minutes, I saw my first birth and I saw my first death. And that night, like after we got off our shift, I just basically went back to my room and collapsed on my bed. And I was reading in Psalms. I was reading Psalm 90 that night. And teach us, O Lord, to count our days, was part of that, and it was just a really heavy day, but definitely a really good day. Put things in perspective. This is the NICU for newborns. I could tell you all kinds of stories of the cases we saw, but if you want to know, you can ask me later. But okay, this man was bit by a puff adder, which is a really poisonous snake, and he went to a marabou, one of the witch doctors, to get treatment, and they wrapped his foot in alcohol, which is like one of the worst things you can do, and it completely deteriorated and fell off. And so he came into the hospital, and the doctors saved it. Like, they had to amputate his leg, but they saved his life. And I heard his story, and I was just trying to think, because when you don't understand the language and you're trying to ask the missionaries, okay, how do I say this? Like, there's not much you can say. But I just wanted to say, I'll be praying for you. God bless you. And I kept asking the missionaries how to say it, and they kept telling me, and I kept trying to say it and said it wrong. But he looked at me and said, God bless you, because he knew some English, and it was really cool. We got to participate in a mobile medical clinic to the outer villages, like way off the beaten path. And it was really cool. This is a church in the background. We did this on their property, and we're setting up a clinic. We took a whole pharmacy's worth of drugs with us and filled prescriptions on the spot. One of my days in the clinics, Ephraim said, okay, today you write, and so I got to write prescriptions, and it was crazy. It's like, what the heck? But it was really cool. Next. This is the chaplain. We took some chaplains with us, and they're teaching the village people while we're getting the pharmacy ready. And this is us working with the people. It was really cool. Yeah, Matt was the Asian guy we took with us, and he had a fan club. I mean, we all had fan clubs, but mine was like 10, and I turned around, and Matt's got like 40 little kids behind him, and this little boy just thought he was the coolest thing. This is Judy Bowen. This is also a really cool story. So the hospital, okay, in Togo there are 74 different tribal languages. Crazy amount of tribal languages. So most people speak 5 languages, but few people know how to read. And there aren't really many gospel tracts. So just imagine someone coming into the hospital, they've never heard the gospel before, you tell them the gospel, they see that our God saves, they want to follow our God, but okay, now sending you on your way. Like what? They don't have any materials. So the hospital has established their own print shop. They have 5, go to the next slide, thanks. Okay, 5 old style, you can kind of see them off to the side, Gutenberg style printing presses. And so they bring in Bible translators and they translate the New Testament on the spot there. And they generate their own gospel tracts and Sunday school curriculums and devotionals. And they do it in all kinds of different languages. And they distribute them all over that corner of Africa, just from this one hospital. And it's really cool. Yeah, so those are some of their Sunday school programs. And this is an aquaponics farm. I had no idea what an aquaponics farm is, but it's a water farm, and they grow African aquatic spinach, and it's self-fertilizing and self-sustaining, and basically it's a never-ending bake sale that raises funds for the blind school, because the hospital only has a budget of about $100,000 a year. That's teeny tiny. American hospitals usually run off of millions or billions even, and this is tiny. And so they don't have treatment to do, they don't have capability to do LASIKs or eye surgeries, and because STDs are so huge, just diseases that cause blindness, they're so rampant. Blindness is a big problem, and these people become outcasts. So the missionaries have built a blind school to teach people how to carve based off of touching something. So they'll hold a little wooden elephant, and then they'll carve one that looks just like it, just by touch. And this plant behind us is what they use to fund it. And we got to go to church with them, and it was really cool. The church in the north where the hospital isn't built yet, they didn't even take offering because the people have no money to give. But most of these ladies here work as nurses for the hospital. The hospitals train them, and it's really cool. And they get to use their money to minister to their own people, and they do. And it's so cool seeing how everything, just like little shockwaves out from this hospital, how it's turning back the curse in so many more than one way. And just cool because it enables the people to serve their people too. And that was really cool. This is my team again with Melissa. We're standing in front of the church there. And it was so cool to see how medical missions is so much more than just a hospital. I mean, you have doctors there, sure, and nurses, but you also have chemists running the aquaponics plant, and you have teachers teaching the kids how to read French and how to read these Bibles they're printing, and you have communications majors running the printing presses, and you have all kinds of people, a French agriculturist, you have everybody there, and it's really cool. It makes me think of when the Bible talks about the Christian church being a body, how you have ears and you have toenails, but it all works together. And that was what I saw in Africa, and it was really cool because the missionaries there, when I used to read missionary biographies, I used to think of them as kind of mini superheroes. Like, they never got tired, they just kept going. But these people, the missionaries in Togo, get tired, really tired. And they get discouraged and hot, but they keep going. And I saw that faithfulness doesn't always look like a great big grin. Sometimes it looks like getting up, being really confused and discouraged, or even in pain, and just moving forward anyway, trusting that God will work it out and be glorified in the end. And these people, they're not perfect. They have sin too. But God does great things through broken people, which is really cool because that's how great our God is. And so I guess just in closing, I'd like to encourage all of us to be faithful with where we are, because you don't have to go to a foreign country to be a missionary. You can be like Umi or the Togolese nurses in that last clip who are being faithful with where God has them. Umi's only 17. We do everything for the glory of God, just like the pastor there, because whether we're being a student and doing our studies to the glory of God or being a friend to the glory of God, if we get to pursue excellence for the glory of God, because we serve an excellent God. Think about that. That the same God we're going to sing praises to tonight, they're singing praises to him in Africa too, because he's God in Africa. And he's God amidst darkness, and he's God over pain. And there are witch doctors in Africa being saved right now, and orphans being saved too, because that's how big our God is. And we get to serve him. That's really cool. You never know what God's going to use. You might think that he'll never use your math class, or serving on the worship team here, or being a leader at VBS, but he just might. You never know. Like DJ said, it wasn't that long ago when I was in junior high, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what classes am I going to take? What am I going to do with my life? Who am I going to date? Maybe not yet, but someday. And there's just a lot of questions, and it seems really confusing, and trust me, when you get older, it doesn't get less confusing. But the cool thing is you don't have to know all the answers. You just have to be faithful with where God puts you, because somebody said that the easiest wheel to turn is one that's already moving. And so that means we have to make sure we're moving, which means being faithful with where God has you and glorifying him now. And he'll take you where he wants you to be. So that's about all I have to say. Keep the missionaries in prayer, because they're hot and they're cramming and rushing to get this hospital open. And pray for Umi. She's got a lot going on too. So thank you so much for your time, and that's it.